going on, everyone? Welcome to the inaugural Nooners of Locations and Lore Hardhome with the Knight Who Smoked the Laughing Tree, aka the Iron Throner. How's it going, man?
Yeah, great, Johnny. Really pleased to be on. Honored to be on the very first one. That's a great little achievement. But yeah, it'll be fun. Hopefully, talk about Hardhome and see how we go.
Oh, we will, man, and it's my pleasure. And we'll kind of get right to it. Um, this is, basically some of my friends and fellow creators' favorite locations is what this podcast will be. Probably do it a round two on a nooner. Maybe do it as a premiere. Y'all let me know what you think in the comments. And yeah, let's get right into it. So we'll start off with Hardhome. 600 years ago, there was a devastating event that happened. Ashes, the whole place burnt. This place is meant to be cursed. What were your thoughts? And I don't know, would you like to explain a little bit to everyone what happened at Hardhome 600 years ago?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, I really like Hardhome just because it's another one of them places that George has put in the story. Places, and I guess they're not all locations, but events that you don't know much about, but I think they give away big clues to the rest of the story. Um, Things like Summer Hall and the Doom of Valyria and things like that. I think Hard Home's along the same lines. A lot of juicy little clues in there, and yeah, it's definitely interesting. As far as what happened 600 years ago, um, sounds pretty extreme. Reminds me of kind of one, like if we're talking in Westeros, the Doom of Valyria. It obviously happened before the Doom, which is another talking point. Which I don't really know what that could mean. It's, I guess, a
Yeah,
possible couple of possible things, but yeah. So it kind of reminds me of if we're talking real world history, Pompeii with
very true.
yeah, same with the Doom, just with like the ashes, and it almost seems like the ashes rained down that heavily that it almost put the continent into like almost a nuclear winter type thing.
Right,
So
and there's a lot of history lost at Pompeii too. It's a seemingly mysterious place. It's also thought to be cursed for a long time, maybe even still to this day. Uh, I've seen many documentaries, and they accidentally catch paranormal footage there, and you have these people who are frozen in time, literally. We're sitting here
yeah,
talking
that's one
about
thing
our
that
home, but yeah, it kind of gives me chills thinking about it. We could have had this natural event, possibly a volcano. It talks about basically the snow um, coming down, but also we have ashes. And then you can go into Patchface's prophecy talking about the snow falling, rising up instead of falling down. You could think a little bit of that. And what Mel sees at Hardhome, too, in the future, when she says that, they're all going to die there. Um, Seemingly, this event will happen again. And I think the Screaming Caves, to your point for what we were talking about before, the screaming caves, I think, are the key here. There's really no reason to point them out other than
yeah,
they have
yeah,
something to do with
exactly.
this. I'll let you elaborate a little bit.
Yeah. So I definitely think it's some type of volcanic eruption. We've got a lot of evidence of volcanic activity throughout in world. There's Valyria and the 14 Flames. Um, Dragonstone says the smoke. We've got obviously the dragon glass. We've got the dragon glass found north of the wall as well. So I think it makes a whole lot of sense that it is or was at least volcanically active. Um, and I definitely think the history is currently beginning to repeat in the where we are currently in the books, because we've seen Cotter Pike was sent there, was sent to Hardhome after I think Mother Mole took the rest of the surviving wildlings after Stannis um, attacked him in the battle at the wall.
Mm-hmm.
So they went off to Hardhome, and we get to a lot of the same language, just dead things in the water. I think they revert to eating themselves. So I think also a lot
This
of the
happens
children of
300 years
women.
ago too. Sorry, but
No,
yeah,
yeah,
this happens 300 years ago too, as far as the eating, and then you have the ships as well, and then you have to factor in mail too. But we'll get into that.
yeah, yeah. It's another spanner to throw into the works. But yeah. So I think the caves give away big clues. I can't recall the name off the top of my head, but there's a pirate that goes there, and he says that the men that sleep in the caves often don't return. There's awful screaming. I think some of the language that's used is fire demons, and ghosts, or fire ghosts. So that's some interesting terminology that we don't really get in any other places that I can think of throughout the books. So there's definitely something going on there, and I'm pretty sure at least that it's somewhat of a mini doom of Valyria. Now, what
Yeah,
caused it? That's open to speculation, and I guess we can try and work that out as we talk through it.
yeah. I mean, it kind of makes me think about what Septon Barth says about Arya Targaryen and the noises they made coming out of her. I still, the way they're described to me doesn't necessarily seem like a fireworm, but you're talking about someone describing something under duress too, right?
Yeah,
So he could definitely be embellishing it. You just seen all these things come out of her skin. We can have a whole nother podcast on what we think, how that occurred, and how the hell she even survived as long as she did. But to your point, I know your theory on it, which I think is pretty damn good. But when you say fire ghost too, and
yeah. See,
also,
that
oh,
threw me off as well. That's a really odd kind of term for something in these books. A lot of the creatures and stuff, whether it be fireworms, dragons, wyverns, direwolves, all them type of mythical beasts, they seem to be actual animals, if you know what I mean. But a
mhm.
fire ghost, that's a very that implies something very mythical and very high fantasy, which we know George tries to avoid as much as possible.
Yeah, and um, didn't you say you think that possibly that the fireworms, right? That
Yep.
they have to be a part of this, seemingly. And we know that they like volcanoes. Your point about the Doom of Valyria, that's kind of where they thrive. I don't think they're just under the ground everywhere. I think they follow magma chambers and they thrive in volcanoes. Um, this could, the fires being immediately put out, right, could signify the others coming, but also could signify them coming aground and reacting to the cold and basically exploding and freaking out kind of the same way they did. What if they were brought to the surface somehow through a ritual,
Yeah, so
through
that's a
the
big
horn?
possibility. Yeah, the Horn of Winter raising giants from the sleeping giants from the ground. Um, with why it led me to fireworms. If I go through it quickly, so we're kind of sticking to Hardhome, and we don't branch off in too much of a tangent. But we have the screaming from the caves. Um, I'll try and find that quote in a second. But this quote from Septon Bath: "Some were no bigger than my little finger, but one at least was as long as my arm. Oh, warrior, protect me!" The sounds they made. Um, so we know that the whatever came out of Urea is making, you know, terrible sounds and the size of an arm. You see in Arya's point of view chapters when she's talking to the faceless men, they talk about fireworms and how that some can be the size of the arms, size of a little girl's arm.
Yeah,
If I can find the quote.
that stood out to me. Yeah, I don't know the exact quote, but yeah, you're definitely right on the money with
So
that.
that's how I linked. That's how I linked the fireworms to a rare Targaryen, and then we have the noises from the caves along with the language of burning ghosts and stuff. So that got me thinking, and if the same noises that these fireworms that are making that come out of Area are coming from these caves, seem very much seems so. Well then, maybe it is something to do with fireworms, and so I started thinking, how do you think all these tunnels throughout the north that go underground, you know, beyond the wall, possibly to Crypt of Winterfell? We know the cave where Bran is at the moment, Three-Eyed Crow. um, that's got a lot of that goes pretty deep. They haven't even been able to fully explore that yet. So there's a lot of tunnels underground, and it'd be very interesting to find out how they were made. I've got a feeling with what we're hearing from Hardhome that all these tunnels were created by fireworms.
I just got an idea, possibly a theory, that the children of the forest warged these fireworms to create tunnels and safe havens from the first men and the Andals.
Yeah, wow.
That would be some insane shit. And then have the children possibly using them as a weapon, or maybe even the others. And if there is a Night King,
And
just yeah.
sorry to cut you off there,
No, go
but
ahead.
great point, and that kind of goes hand in hand with what I think the Valyrians were doing when they were mining the 14 Flames, and with so if you're right, and the children were possibly walking the fireworms to build tunnels, and possibly that was going on at Hardhome. Um, Maybe whatever caused the doom was the same. It was whatever the Targaryens were doing, or not the Targaryens, sorry, whatever the Valyrians were doing to cause the doom, maybe the children of the forest were also doing as well, far north.
Yeah, you did have a settlement of men there. This seemingly almost is a place where these men were cut off by accident. And you could say that this may be one of the designated areas of the Children of the Forest. And they could have attacked this place after possibly having something happen to a weirwood or being offended. Eh, maybe I'm stretching here. But I do think they could have played a role in it. Although it does seem like the others came afterwards. Um, and then you have the children always followed by the others as well, seemingly. Like not even just at Hardhome.
Yeah, no, you're definitely correct about that. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of conjecture and a lot to talk about when you're thinking about Hardhome, especially if we're talking about what actually happened there 600 years ago. I mean, there's lots of recent events too, but yeah, it's very fascinating. I think I'm trying to find the quote. I've got that many quotes here on this. It's hard to track down, but yeah. So here we go. We've got Hardhome had stood a landscape of charred trees and burned bones. Waters choked the swollen corpses. Blood, blood-chilling shrieks echoing from the cave. Mouths that pocked the great cliff that loomed above the settlement. Tunnels. Oh, sorry, that was the next quote. So we got blood-chilling shrieks echoing from the caves, and we go back to the quote that I said before. from Septim Bath when examining Arya Targaryen. "Oh warrior, protect me!" The sounds they made, and that speaking of which, these sounds, if we're talking about them quickly, I've got the quote right in front of me. But
Mhm.
when a rare is getting examined, obviously they see the whatever they be, there's some form of fire parasite under her skin crawling around. I know we mentioned the Horn of Winter earlier briefly, and we get very similar language when Dragonbinder is blown at the Kingsmoot. So the cheeks of the tattooed man were so puffed out they looked about to burst, and the muscles in his chest twitched in a way that made it seem as if the bird were about to rip free of his flesh and take wing. So he's got the muscles in his chest twitching in a way that it seems as if the bird, he's got a tattooed phoenix on his chest, I believe. So that reminded me of the creepy crawlies under Arya's skin. We know that dragon horn makes a really, really nasty sound, dragon binder. And we get similar language with the lips of the man who blew it. They're cracked and smoking, which is very similar to Arya as well. So
Her nether lips.
we won't go there. But yeah, so I think there's definitely something going on. We've got a Targaryen that went to Valyria, come back with fireworms in her, making very similar noises to the noises in the caves at Hardhome and the noises of Dragonbinder. And we have the Horn of Winter that supposedly wakes sleeping giants from the earth, whether or not those sleeping giants are dragon worms or not. And then obviously the two mini volcano eruptions, or not so mini volcano eruptions, but we've got the mini version of the Doom of Valyria in Hardhome. So there's a lot of parallels there. Not sure how it all ties together, but I think maybe you could be onto something in regards to the Children of the Forest, possibly doing some type of skin changing to the fireworms in a similar way that the dragons that the Valyrians had figured out to harness. So I don't know. I just,
I have to
sorry, I just,
look at it a little more. No, it's okay. I have to look at it a little more to put it together, but there's seemingly something there. And we know they don't like the cold, but underground in a volcano or in a magma chamber, uh, it's not cold. Um, we also get the fire that, they thought the sun was rising from the north. This was 300 years later, yet this event happens again. Does it happen every 300 years, Night? Uh, that's, George and his threes, right? We've seen this
yeah.
so many times. And
One
every
thing
act. Go
you
ahead.
just made me think of when you mentioned the fireworms didn't like ice. I believe the only way Septim Bath removed them from area is with ice. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Put ice on their skin on her skin, and they came out.
he dumped her in a bath of ice water, and basically he hoped she died from the shock, but they burst out of her skin and eyeballs and shit as soon as and just died after put them in the water. The thing is they didn't explode, but
Yeah,
if these are baby fireworms, you could think a 30-foot long adult may have a violent chemical reaction when
and
it
then
comes out to the cold.
or if there's a volcano involved. What my theory was with if George might be telling us something there. Um, if ice is what made the fireworms that were in Arya rise out of her skin, maybe it was ice that made the fireworms at Hardhome, if we're on the right path, rise, causing the volcanic eruption. So, which would go back to, was Hardhome, did Hardhome occur because of something to do with the others and the White Walkers?
Yeah, they do bring the cold and they seemingly physically change the weather. Now they can only come out at night in the books, which is something we can think about. And every 300 years, the others haven't just been sitting dormant. If and Hardhome is always thought to be an accursed place. What if this is a place where it was almost like a crafters, where they gave sons away? And then there was also goes back to your 300 years ago why uh what's Gorn the wolf was slain. Maybe he didn't agree with this, just kind of like John did. Holy shit, I think we're putting stuff together here. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, it's all coming together now. No, that's a very good point because we know if it's a similar situation to what was going on at Crasters, we know, as you say, the others bring the cold in the night, so extreme cold, and then that makes the fireworms rise, just like the cold made the fireworms rise out of Area's skin, causing the mini doom at Hardhome. But yeah, I think we're slowly putting it together. It's I picked a bit of a doozy as far as what location to talk about. There's only so much book canon you can go off with Hardhome. But that's what I like about these locations. You know, Hardhome, Lands of Always Winter, Valyria.
There's
They're fun.
seemingly vital clues here, though. This may be the Valyria of ice, like the hard home is the destruction of ice, and then you have the destruction of fire at Valyria, but seemingly maybe the same magic or the same type of blood magic is involved here. You
Yes.
got to think babies being sacrificed. That's still blood magic, even if they aren't killed. I still think turning them into an other if that's, we're going off show here too, because we only have what two instances in the books where we even have
Yeah.
contact with the other. So I'm using conjecture when you're thinking about the
Well,
baby,
depends if you include cold hands or not. But yeah, no, you're technically right. Um,
because they could just be another species altogether, like the orcs or elves or what the hell ever. I don't know where Germ's going with this, but I do feel like the baby thing happened earlier enough that Germ approved it because
yeah,
it would be so off if the books went different, right? It'd be fine with me if they did, but
yeah.
I feel like because didn't it happen in the beginning of season 4 or at the end of season 3? I can't remember.
I
Either
was
way,
thinking three, but it was either three or four.
yeah. Either way,
Um,
it's I think it's probably canon and that's how the others are made because they're seemingly one a twin to the other and a twin to the other when you hear them in the prologue. So I think we can kind of count on that. I'd say 99% sure that's how that works because you have the Craster's keep and he sacrifices them to the others, but we don't know what happens, right?
yeah, I don't know
Never
the
really.
exact process.
Yeah. So I still
I'm
I
not.
think it's go ahead.
I'm not sure we will know the exact process. I think that's what George likes to do with all these places with high magic. He just gives you a couple of little clues and lets you try and work it out. Just little teasers, I think. But I think
I just
also these places. Sorry to cut you off again. I think also these places, if we were to know too much about them, I think they give away too much of the story. I think that's why things like Summer Hall, um, Hard Home, even you could say the Crypt of Winterfell. Just there's a lot of things that there's something there, but it hasn't been laid out for us. We've only been given clues.
I've got a theory, and maybe Hardhome was one of the places that were sacrificed, right? So this place was destroyed. The old ways are being slowly abandoned, and Craster is the last one to still sacrifice to the others that we know of.
Yep.
Maybe they just don't have anyone else that'll give them babies, and that's why they're coming back. I mean, that's the like a Occam's razor situation, but it's the simplest answer. And then that's why Baby Monster or Baby Sam is so damn important
Yeah.
because you're taking away this species' ability to reproduce.
Yeah, it's pretty much just like, I guess, today's world, endangered species. There's only what, imagine if there's only 12 of one species left in the world, or whatever the number is in the books. You take one away. Definitely right. That baby's got to be worth some immense value to the others. That's for sure.
Yeah,
And
that would suck too. Can't have sex, I'd be mad as well. Um, but if you want to talk a little bit more about Gorm the Wolf and what happened 300 years ago, which maybe around the time Mel had her incident, what's the confirmation on her? They want to say she's around 400 years old, but I think this 300-year time period, this at Hardhome, Mel Lot 7. We also get later when John sends uh, Arthur Yarwick to Hardhome, lease slave traders from Lease and I don't know, maybe Volantis, I can't remember the exact people, uh, accidentally crash landed there and took a bunch of women and children and duped them into basically being slaves. Now later they landed on Bravos and did
yeah,
slave
lucky.
trade, but I don't think that's a coincidence, right?
No, it definitely parallels what happened earlier in the story. Um, with with Gorm the Wolf and Maester Willis. That's just another intriguing little bit of information that we get that makes you wonder. So I believe that comes from the world of Ice and Fire, and we hear of a maester who spends 3 years, pretty much like 3 years as like a refugee or a companion to the wildlings at Hardhome, and he does this under the protection of one of the chiefs called Gorm the Wolf. Um, Gorm's a very odd name. I presume that's the only Gorm throughout the whole story. But Gorm the Wolf, that definitely made me think of skin changing and possibly dire wolves and the likes, which then automatically makes you ask if he was a Stark. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
so
could he
this
be a
makes
bastard from the wall, like someone who was on the walls, bastard? That's dark. Yeah.
yeah, well that's another thing. Like we've got we always get mention of either a Stark beyond the wall or a Stark at the wall. Mostly throughout history, there's lots. It seems that a lot of Starks were, they were getting pretty busy. They were, either for the good or the bad. They were definitely pretty active around the wall, that area. So that's interesting. So there's definitely a possible connection to the Starks there. But yeah, so this Maester um, returns to Old Town, and I think after, can you remember exactly why he returns, Johnny?
Um, not necessarily. Oh, he
Where are we?
returned basically because, well, he just fled, right? Because he was in mortal danger that we were talking about.
Yeah,
And he talked of cannibalism. I want to say he could have been killed, maybe for they didn't want, he wanted to expose what was happening with the babies. Or there was some other tradition they didn't want to be seen because he was one of four chieftains, I think. And
yeah, correct.
they may not have liked everything, all their secrets being recorded, honestly. Um, but I do think him being Gorm the wolf, uh, possible skin changer for sure. I think they were a little more common back then as well and more accepted.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
but he could have been hiding it as well, and they found out, and that's why he was killed as an abomination. Something happened with wargs a while back to make everyone so feared of them. Now, is this because the children of the forest can warg? Is this because the others can warg? Um, that's kind of a key question, maybe. But it's kind of it's there's so much open for speculation. That's what I do love about Hardhome, though, and I can't wait to get more about it in the books because seemingly more people are wanting to go there. Before John got killed, he was going to go there, even though Mel told him when he got there they'd all be dead anyways. So if he does survive, is he going to go there? And will Tormund get to Hardhome too? That's kind of a big question later. And I know I'm jumping ahead here.
No, that's all right. Yeah, as far as what happened to Maester Willis, it's very. It's one of them things that I don't think we'll find out to begin with. So um, I don't think it necessarily matters either. I think it's the more as you say, is the conflict as to why Gorm the Wolf was killed. I think it definitely had something to do with what that maester that he was protecting was doing. So he could be right as far as they didn't like whatever he was documenting. There was definitely something that he was writing in that book. I think it's called An Account of 3 Years Spent Beyond the Wall Among Savages, Raiders, and Woods Witches. Um,
I
and it
want to read
also
that.
says, yeah. Then there's a lot of books in world books that I'd like to read. Um, and just on the wiki quickly, it says after the illuminations were finished in the book, so after the artwork and the book was finished, uh, Willis went back to the docks and wanted a ship to take him to Eastwatch by the Sea, and that was the last time Willis was ever seen again. So I've done a bit of searching on this, trying to see if anyone with a similar name kind of pops up throughout the story or anywhere throughout the text, whether it be in the main series or in World of Ice and Fire or Fire and Blood, and it kind of just vanishes off the face of the earth. It's a weird one that.
Yeah, it is. Seemingly, he went back and was killed. The one thing after
Or
this is
or the Maesters didn't want him to go back and he was killed.
possibly they might have left out some of the stuff he wrote as well.
Mm.
We've seen that happen a lot. And if you go like Hard Home, it's kind of crazy because you have after this it's seemingly haunted, right? And cursed. And this is after we have another event to where an eruption, fireworms, and seemingly the others come uh, every time. This time it's not necessarily confirmed. They only see the fire, right? The 300 years
Yeah.
ago. But we can kind of assume the same thing happened. It seems to be a repetitive event, and the others may or may not have anything to do with it, but seemingly that has to be the key. That's the only time a place is haunted or cursed, especially in the north. It's usually when the others have anything to do with it.
It's
That's the
either the
only thing they're
others,
scared of.
the others or the children, I believe. Because it could be like the Harrenhal situation. So we find out that 600 years ago, before whatever happened at Hardhome that destroyed it happened, it says that it was a pretty big, thriving town. Had a good port. There was lots of trade between, Essos. So it sounds like it was a pretty big, thriving community. It was obviously big enough and interesting enough for a maester to try and go figure out what happened there much later. So I don't know if maybe the children of the forest didn't like such a large settlement being built there. Maybe they would see they wouldn't have been destroying the weirwoods. You wouldn't have thought, because you would think they would have followed the old gods.
Here's an issue I have too, and I'll throw this at you. The
Yeah,
dead
go
thing,
for it.
the dead things in the water. And this is dead things that are alive. I don't know how to describe it. It talks about Arthur Yorick sends back a message with the dead things in the woods, right? And the dead
Yep.
things in the water. Now, the others supposedly can't be near salt water or water in general, but I think it's salt water. But that may or may not be a myth. We have no, it's hard to tell about that at this point. That's
I
just
think
assuming they're made of ice. It's saying they can't
um
go to salt water.
yeah, no, I think I as far as the salt water goes, I think that is relatively pretty canon. And what makes me think that's a pretty odd little quote, actually. Um, but and it kind of relates to what I was just talking to as well in Harrenhal. We see when Arya is on her way to the wall with Yoren, they stop by the God's Eye, and she tastes the water, and the water's notably warm and also salty. Now, if we're talking curses, um, salt water protecting you from the others, and then we've got possibly the warm water as well. It kind of makes me think that the God's Eye is one A, surrounded by salt, because the salt water, because it protects the green seers from the White Walkers, and then two, if that water is warm, maybe there's a situation like we have at Winterfell, where we have like a volcanic activity in the ground, creating steam and hot pools and as such. So maybe, and like, how did the God's Eye just appear in the middle of that lake, man? That doesn't
Yeah.
happen. If you know
Well,
what I
you can
mean?
also have the springs without a volcano can be pretty far away. I don't think there's a volcano under Winterfell. There's probably one close to Winterfell.
So
But that's neither here nor there. You're still with the point with the salt water, and uh, it's a great point. But is it just the others? This is the question. Is it what the others turn that can't go through salt water? Because if you think about it, what if a kraken dies and the others are near? Does it does it rise up? Maybe the dead things in the water are just all the damn dead people he saw, and we're reading too much into it. It could be a type of red herring to throw you off, right? Um, but
what?
that's the only thing that stopped them from going east, seemingly, right? Is the salt water. So
Yeah, yeah. It appears. It appears so. Yeah. What the dead things in the water? I think that's another chunky little bit of information or clue that George has left us, because you naturally, at first, like, you first read it and it goes over your head, and you naturally just think either whites or just, yeah, as you say, dead bodies, corpses, and then you think, okay, well, if the whites can't be in the salt water, what are the dead things? So it's very, very interesting that, whether it be, do you think, hmm, do you think it's possibly, like, we know the others have walked? Apparently, we haven't seen it, but we know from old known stories they walk giant spiders. Um, I presume that we're going to see a whole bunch of various animals walked as whites by the by the others and the White Walkers. throughout the books in the future whenever they do attack. Um, so whether or not, yeah, they're walking creatures in the water, or there's whites in the water, and then like, what happens? What's in the water when just to skip quickly to a different location, but when Tyrion falls in the water and Connington catches Grayscale, what are they in the water technically? Are they dead things or are they living?
Hmm. I don't know.
And we know the wildlings are like absolutely terrified of Grayscale.
You know, they're dead men walking, basically. And hmm, things in the water. That throws me off so much, man.
Yeah, it's such a an innocent quote, but it's so open to interpretation of what things could actually
Oh,
be.
are we bringing the drown god into this now? And like a complete different god at some
Well,
point. Because you got Euron doing a lot of shit. I don't know. Mm, go ahead.
yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, I kind of touched on Euron briefly, or not Euron per se, but the Dragonbinder. We know he's traveling to Old Town. Might run into Sam, who's got the horn that he found. Um, Definitely something going on with Euron and horns, and then with some of the things in Fire and Blood that we've got as well. Uh, Definitely hints towards Krakens. Um,
And Euron's been bleeding the water as well.
yeah. So whether or not, I mean, I think Kraken whites. I think that's a bit maybe over the top for George. I'm not sure. I think if we see a Kraken, I think it's just going to be a pretty plain old Kraken. Might be summoned with a horn or something like that, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be a dead thing in the water. Um,
Yeah, I just don't. It could be a little bit of madness. It could be on a ship some people turned, maybe. But it said in the water, not on the water. I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe I think we'll get something to the effect of it later. But I do know there are some odd animals that people encounter, especially in Fire and Blood, like you said, when they go on these sea adventures that they can't even describe hardly sometimes. Um, Maybe the dead things in the water just they look similar to the whites, or it's just
Um,
dead bodies and we're looking way too much into it.
yeah, it could be that, but I think on the basis of, I'm pretty sure that the salt water definitely is at least some form of protection from at least the White Walkers. Maybe not the others, and that could explain the dead things in the water. But the White Walkers, I think they definitely can't go in salt water. We do hear that Hardhome was flourishing with a whole bunch of sea lions and seals and stuff. Now, if you create a white from something that's already living in the water, can already go in the water, I wonder if that's what it could be.
Yeah,
Do you know what
that's
I mean?
my thought. Because the seal could be turned on land and then go in the water, and then possibly the undead things, like you said, can't. It doesn't really matter. They just kind of sink to the bottom or do
Mm,
whatever. Um, because he wouldn't. The others probably wouldn't be able to get to a whale or a kraken or anything like that. But something that's amphibious for sure and gets close to the shore, maybe, but I would say, yeah, seals, and that could be a big clue. I think you're picking up on something there that they could be turned, they freak out, they just go to the water to try to escape while they're turning, and then they're just you have these rabid ass seals. How long they live is up for speculation. They may not even live that long, but they could possibly live long enough to be dead things in the water. I don't think it's an
Yeah,
instant they die, right?
yeah, nah, me either. Yeah, I don't know that the dead things in the water definitely it's definitely written to make you think and do exactly what we're doing now and speculate. Um, who knows? You might be right. We might be overthinking it, and it is just bodies. But I mean, seals make sense. Whites make sense to a certain point if you disregard the salt water theory. But
Yeah.
either way, there's a lot of nasty things going on at Hardhome. It's like Cotter Pike's boat. We know there's whites seen at Hardhome when John sends Cotter Pike and a few other ships up to get the wildlings. I think only a couple make it. And when he does arrive, he's attacked by wildlings. He has to fight a lot of the wildlings off. I think he loses 6 men in doing so. So they're in a pretty desperate situation up there. And I think it's very similar, just a repeat to the events that happened probably 300 years ago and 600 years ago. Um, I just don't know if we'll see another volcanic eruption or not.
The thing is, it ends in fire too. Now, the fires are. Now, Mel says later in her vision that the fires will be extinguished, given maybe the others came. But when they go back 300 years later, there's not a living soul there. Everything's charred and burnt up. Um, being as this is probably going to happen 3 times, I'm going to take natural event out of the equation. And it's been so every 300 years nearabouts is when it seemingly has this rebirth. So I would think, see, I still think the children and the others are in it a little bit together. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
think the
definitely.
children are innocent, as no one is in this story. I'm not saying that they weren't wronged as people, they weren't wronged as beings, I'm sorry, and kicked out of their land. They mirror the Native Americans in many aspects. It's devastating, and I wouldn't blame them for. We don't. There could be something to Hard Home that is significant to the children of the forest that we have yet to learn about. That is special to them. Um, that they kind of clear out people whenever it gets full.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, I definitely agree with that. And I mean, we've been talking about curses a lot. Um, we know Harrenhal's curse. That's right near a known location, being God's Eye, as far as the children of the forest. They they weren't happy. There's a lot of theories as far as the children of the forest being behind curses at Harrenhal. And some of them even go as far as to say uh, they were the ones that sent um, dreams to Danny's the Dreamer. So I mean, if there's a similar thing going on in multiple places, I think they definitely all relate, and you can draw clues from each one to try and piece together what was happening at the other locations. Um,
yeah, because I feel like we have the children of the God's Eye and the children north of the wall, maybe two separate, different thinking groups of children. I don't think they're separated by that long distance for no reason whatsoever. The wall separates them from the good children and the Order of the Green Men and the God's Eye, in my opinion, is what it looks like. And I feel like Bran's being used as a pawn, especially by how he's being talked to and being told what he wants to hear because he is a child. He's being told all this magnificent shit. And I think he may be the key to how the Night King gets past the wall. Uh, I'm not saying he's definitely the Night King or anything like that, but Bran is a key, and we see it, especially in the show when he gets touched. There's a reason for that. And Bloodraven knew that he was going to get touched. He was like, "No, he touched you.
Yeah.
I knew this was going to happen. It just happened sooner than I expected. You bastard." You know, and nobody really questions that. They're just like, "Oh, Bran's good." No, Bran's the three-eyed raven now. You can't trust. I don't trust Bran. Uh, not fully. I want to know what the hell he sees, but I do not trust him fully. He's kind of creepy on me.
As
Just
soon as soon as you said that comment to Sansa, um, about the wedding night, I haven't trusted him since that bloody moment. I was off brand since then. But that's another story. I think I think going back to what you were saying about talking about freeze and this happening every 300 years, um, it does seem as though the events have just started to reoccur. I don't know. I think let's just say if there was another some form of event, whether it be natural or non-natural, like we see at Hardhome previously, I think it has to be somewhat caused by the others being there. We know there's whites there at the moment, and they're resorting to cannibalism. So we got some. We've already got whites there. We've got abomination going on. Um, and then going back to what we were talking about earlier, with ice bringing the fireworms to the surface. Maybe I'm not sure this will happen, but if it does happen, I think this is how it will. Um, whites are at Hardhome. The others come over with the whites to attack the Night's Watch when Tormund and the rest of the group get there. And then that possibly, if the others bringing the cold, that possibly might bring the fireworms out of the caves into the surface, um, which would be pretty eventful, I think. Um, but
what? What also? What if Bran's in that cave? Go ahead and mark this if y'all are watching this. What if Bran is in that cave and he has to warg the fireworms as like a kamikaze bomb to stop the others to kind of save a few select people that are going to Hardhome? Because maybe John may be going to Hardhome when he wakes up. If he wakes up, we'll see what happens with John's body. I'm pretty sure he's coming back because that's where he was headed, and then we do kind of have Tormund headed there. Uh, Something significant is going to happen there. There hasn't been all this devastation and lead up to getting to Hardhome for this reason, especially in the books. And I don't. It's not. I don't know if it's going to be necessarily like in the show, but I think we're going to have our first kind of battle with the others there that we're going to get possibly a first-hand account of in the books. So I can't, we'll get, because you get these random characters every now and then, and we may just get a Torment or someone who is at Hardhome with a prologue or an epilogue.
it could be Mother Mole.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, that'd be a good one, especially for something like a prologue or an epilogue. That'd be great. Um, yeah, it's very interesting. Whether or not Torment will make it to Hardhome, and then like you could be right. Maybe Bran causes something to happen, or something happens just before they get to Hardhome. So when they get there, they didn't it wasn't at their peril, because we know if there's whites there, if the Night's Watch are getting information saying that there's whites already at Hardhome, by the time any help gets there to help out the wildlings, things could be in a pretty dire situation, a lot worse than what they already are. So they might get there, and who knows, there might not be a wildling left. They might be all turned to whites. And the
Yeah,
Night's Watch might be extremely outnumbered.
something that makes me think for sure too the children are there and having something to do with it is when they went back the 300 years ago when the Night's Watch went back, there were bloated bodies and everything everywhere. There wasn't like just nothing like you would think that the
Yeah,
others would take with them. I think this may be an attempt to stop the others from getting their army, more of their
yeah, that's a
army.
good
Also,
pickup.
there's
No, keep going. That's a really good pickup. As far as the others would have, they wouldn't have left dead bodies behind. You wouldn't have thought.
yeah, they wouldn't have, and it could be a way of the children trying to stop that. Hardhome seemingly is kind of set up to be ambushed as well, and if they were doing the whole thing Craster did, you could see the children of the forest possibly trying to interrupt that for sure, or even a man. A warg, a powerful warg like Varamir Sixskins, could have warged fireworms and caused, like, just caused this kamikaze explosion. Went for it all, didn't care about dying, and just fucking went for it and went into some fireworms. I don't know. Um, my tinfoil
Um,
theory of the day. Ha!
I think it's going to be a little bit tinfoily when we're speculating on what happened at Hardhome. As I say, there's not much canon, but as far as I think, it definitely now that I think about it, I'm surprised I didn't pick up on it earlier. The book that Maester Willis writes was in the title a reference Woods Witches. Throughout the story, uh, all the Woods Witches we see in different points throughout the books, they
Oh,
are all definitely either possibly full or half breeds of the children of the forest.
Genie of
So
Oldstone.
yeah, correct. I guess Maggie the Frog as well. I think she's got big yellow eyes, if I remember correctly, like the children. Um, so if there's woods witches, as far as we know, if they're at uh, if they're at Hardhome, they kind of have to be children of the forest to some extent.
Yeah, because honestly, everywhere you see a woods witch, there's rumored or a grove of weirwoods close to this person. Even the chopped down grove is close, semi close to the God's Eye. And yeah, man, that kind of gave me a little bit of chills thinking about that. Yeah, they're definitely there. And in the books, we don't know where the Night King was made. That's still up for speculation. But could it be Hardhome? That would be some crazy shit. There's not enough evidence to really go either way. And maybe looking back, we can find some, but this is a significant ass place. There's no other place in the north that has so much significance, so much shit going on, and so much turmoil and weird just happenings. Um, it's the God's Eye of the North, possibly. Ooh.
Yeah, yeah. Imagine that. Maybe whatever happens isn't going to happen again at Hardhome. It happens at the God's Eye. But I think there's definitely a lot of references to Bravos, or maybe not a lot, but there's definitely a few references to Bravos, as you mentioned earlier. Um, the slaves that were taken recently in the books, that were going to be off to Volantis, I believe. They ended up uh, being kind of shipwrecked and had to come ashore and ported in Bravos, where the Sea Lord, thankfully for the slaves' sake, took took care of that situation and set the slaves free. Obviously, Bravos don't like anything to do with slavery. We have big
No,
connections to them with the doom of Valyria. We hear tales from the kindly man speaking to Arya about some possible involvement in what happened at the 14 Flames, and so like, is it possible that either what happened at Hardhome is it possible that was either a practice run through the dome, which would probably be a bit of a different angle to what we're taking? Or is it possible that someone at Hardhome ended up, like say Hardhome 600 years ago, Hardhome erupts, there's devastation there. We know that there's trade between Hardhome and Essos. We know that slavers have often picked up slaves from Hardhome. Is it possible that Hardhome erupted 600 years ago for the first time that we know of? Slaves were picked up, taken across the sea to and ended up in Valyria, and they had the information as to how to bring down the 14 flames. Because it seems it's oddly coincidental that that we get a couple of references to slavery in Bravos at Hardhome, and then the parallels that Hardhome shares with the Doom of Valyria and what the kindly man tells Arya. I don't know. As I say, I don't know if it was a practice run or if that's how they got the idea or the information to do the Doom. I don't know.
Well, I think, Mel came from Hardhome as well. To your point, I
Yeah, well, that's
think,
something we haven't really touched on that we should get into as well.
yeah, I definitely think there's ancient rituals and practices that happen there. You have the woods witches specifically mentioned in the title of the book, to your point, and I think they were dabbling in a lot of things. One, maybe like I said earlier with the babies. Two, we have dragon eggs. Um, there's seemingly you have a mention of ice dragons too. So I have to throw that out there. If you're gonna throw out Summerhall may have been an attempt to hatch dragon eggs, maybe this is an attempt to hatch ice dragon eggs by the others. Oh, it's super tinfoil, but I like talking about it. I really think there's something there anyway. There's some kind of ritual, some kind of magic going on there other than an event, as we've stated. And with Mel, she has a deep tie here, and she seemingly, even in the books, doesn't necessarily want to talk about it and doesn't even really want to think about it.
Oh God, I hope we find out.
I do too. I really do too. And she's kind of she told John that they'll all be dead anyway when you get there, basically kind of dissuading him from going. So it makes me wonder what the hell is going on at Hardhome, and I'll let you speculate a little bit.
Um, I think as far as if Mel did come from Hardhome, which I guess there is a bit of evidence for, it makes perfect sense because obviously she's absolutely obsessed with the law and the fire god. So if she's come from a place that essentially erupted and burst into flames, um, that kind of makes sense. Um, I guess symbolically, um, and then that goes back to what I was saying. If providing Mel is that age, that's another example of slaves being taken from Hardhome when something devastating's happened there. So which would tie back into possibly slaves ending up in Valyria working on the 14 flames.
And if it's basically a place where it's easy to gather slaves for normal use, would it be a easy place to gather whites for your army?
Yeah, well,
Could it work both ways, right?
yeah, correct.
Man, it's amazing how little of actual canon we have on Hardhome, but we can sit here and talk about it for well over an hour and just speculate. I would
That's
like,
why I picked it.
oh man, it's a great location. I'm super glad you did. lots of people love the episode, but not a lot of people talk specifically about this awesome location. Um, yeah, I'd like you to give a little bit more of um, what you kind of like about it, and maybe sum up your theory, possibly, if you want.
Yeah, no worries. Well, for one, I think reason it's such a cool location to speculate and talk about is because there is so little canon, but what information, what direct information from the books that we do have about it is very, very intriguing. So, I mean, it would have been great to talk about a place. I don't know. I could have picked, say, King's Landing, for example, where we have stacks. So we know how that place was built pretty much from the ground up, if you know what I mean. But if you've read the books, you kind of know all that. Everyone, I think, is going to have their own little twist and theory as to what happened at Hardhome. So hopefully this just gets a bit of speculation going and kind of drives your thought train. But as far as kind of summing up my thoughts on it and theories, I think that the first the devastating event at Hardhome 600 years ago. Um, Positive that was volcanic. See evidence all throughout of volcanoes. Um, definitely, definitely mirrors the doom of Valyria. I think there's fireworms in the caves. I think the fireworms made all the tunnels throughout the north underground. You made a good point. I don't know if you made this before we started streaming or during the stream, but you made a point earlier saying that maybe the children warged the fireworms, and that's how all these tunnels were made, which would make sense too. Yeah, so I think, and then so we have fireworms, a big volcanic eruption, and then the repeat of freeze have happened. Similar events happened again 300 years later with Maester Willis disappearing. Who was probably killed because he revealed too much about what was going on, and and then we have what's conspiring in the books, and what hopefully we'll get in Winds of Winter, which I think we'll touch on and be very reminiscent of some of the things that we've discussed throughout this podcast, and some of the things that have happened at Hardhome will repeat again for sure.
Oh, I
Yeah.
agree with you on uh, almost all of that. I'm gonna go super tenfold though. I do think that we will get a first hand account of this event at Hardhome coming up. Uh, I feel like we need it. That it's super important.
We
Could
might
it?
see it through Brand's eyes, through the weirwood net.
Yeah, yeah. I think we could. I think this could be where Bran gets touched in the books. This could be where he tries to go and stop possibly the Night King, maybe even save John, but that's up for speculation whether John will get there in time. I At some point he's going to go traveling by himself, and I think Hardhome's one of the places he'll come upon, and maybe we'll get the first person account through Bran, and he'll see this event unfold through the weirwood net, and then at the end get grabbed by the Night King. Oh, that'd be a good chapter. I wish I could write.
Pure fan fiction.
Yeah, that's where I'm gonna stick with it. It's been a fantastic chat. I thank you so much for coming on, Knight. Would you like to plug your channel, The Iron Throner, and throw out any social media you would like, man?
Yeah, sweet man. I'm really honored to be on. It's good to, I guess, talk as face to face as we possibly can, being on different sides of the globe. But no, it's been great. As far as social media goes, those who know me, I'm on Facebook and I'm in the Geek Cat One group. So pop in there. I'm under the Night Who Smoked the Laughing Tree on Twitter. Also at Azor I'm High. And then yeah, on YouTube, I've got my channel. It's kind of just my personal social channel, The Night Who Smoked the Laughing Tree, and then a channel where I upload content, which I've been unfortunately pretty slow on at the moment due to some uh, some unfortunate events. But on a different note, yeah, check out the Iron Throner. Um, that's fun, and I really appreciate you having me on, Johnny. I couldn't be more thankful that you've got me on the first episode, and it was really great having a chat to you about this. I don't often get to talk this deeply about Game of Thrones stuff or A Song of Ice and Fire.
Sorry. Yeah. No, the pleasure is all mine, my friend. And I truly thank you for staying up late with me. Uh, I know you sleep during the day, whatever. But no, I appreciate it, man. It's been a blast. I think we may have come across some things, and I probably said some stupid things, I'm sure. Uh, Please
I'm
just
sure I did too.
yell at us in the comments. Also, be looking for this. For nooners of locations and lore, just thank you so much, everyone, for watching. This has been the Hard Home Edition with the Knight Who Smoked the Laughing Tree. Peace, everyone.